My guest today is Tristan Handy. He's the founder and CEO of DBT Labs and the originator of the terms analytics engineer. He also writes the Analytics Engineering Roundup and hosts the Analytics Engineering podcast. Over the last decade, Tristan's helped shape thousands of teams' approach to transformation and enabled them to ship high quality production data. Tristan, welcome to Data Bytes.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you here. Like many folks in data, you've had an interesting path getting into analytics.
Hmm.
It's been covered at length on other shows. However, I'd love if you could provide our listeners with a 30,000-foot overview of how the last 30 years in the space have gone for you.
Ha. Gosh, I don't think I'm quite at 30 years, which maybe that's thank goodness. Um, but
Rounding error, I suppose.
okay. Wait, I have a quick question for you. Um, how old were you when you first used a spreadsheet?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
You got to go back a ways, right?
10? 10.
Yeah, I think that I was around the same age. For me, that would have been right around 1990. It was like on a very early Macintosh, and um, I I think it was the program at the time was called Microsoft Works, um, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any spreadsheet work to do, so I was like, well, I can make a times table. It was like top of mind for me as a fourth grader or whatever. And you on the left hand side you put 1 through 12, and at the top you put 1 through 12, and then you multiply them. And the performance of the machine at the time was such that it could handle multiplication tables 1 through 12, but if you tried to go out to 20, it would actually crash. So rather limited in the amount of data that it could process. But that was like my first experience of, that's neat to see a bunch of numbers on the screen and you can kind of program it a little bit. Um, I then had internships through high school and college that were very data focused. Not, you like pick up jobs here and there because you know about data. You're kind of quantitatively oriented, and just find ways to be useful in kind of white collar environments. And and then my first full time job was at Deloitte Consulting, where I did a bunch of systems implementation work and data conversion work, and it was introduced to ETL and Oracle Warehouse Builder and massive blobs of PL SQL and Oracle. So yeah, that's kind of the early part of the story for me. And just the very last thing here is that I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think I was pretty good at data when in the early part of my career. This is like 2003 to 2008, and yet there was like no clear career path for me. If you come out of college, you land a good job, and you do really well, you like to think that it's pretty clear how to get promotions and how to create a career path out of that, and it just wasn't. I got 5 years in, and I was like, no, all of the things that I'm doing, the things that I like doing, the data work, actually seem to be a dead end from a career path perspective, and all the things that I like to do a little bit less, at least in a kind of Deloitte consulting context, they were the things that would have actually helped me get promoted. And so it's always stayed with me that if we want to value uh, technical skills with data, we need to create a context in which we reward them and allow folks to create career paths out of that.
Yeah, that's interesting, and it's perhaps not the most exciting thing to have the prospect of making PowerPoints in that consulting context be the path to promotion. And I think that's maybe what you were hinting at. And at that point, that's where you started to get the itch to go into startups. Is that right?
There was one step in between there. So like many I don't know, I would call it mid-career professionals, who like need to figure out what their next step is. I went to business school, um, and just to kind of try to figure it all out. Um, I the theory was that I was going to uh, go and work in the renewable energy space, and I actually did that. I went to work for GE's wind unit, and they do good work, but it was a ginormous company, and it just kind of moved at a pace that was not consistent with how I like to work. It just so happened that I had a good friend from high school and college who was the founder of Squarespace, and Squarespace was going through the like early scale up part of its journey, and so I went to work there and run their uh, data capability, which was such as it was very limited, um, but helped grow that, and that was my first view into startups. I grew up on the East Coast. I've always lived on the East Coast. I don't have the kind of I'm not surrounded by startup culture, um, but the idea that just you and a small group of uh, friends, coworkers can do something meaningful in the world and pay your own salaries and wear T-shirts all at the same time. That felt important to me.
Yeah, very cool. And you've said before that when you started Fishtown Analytics, which is now, of course, DBT Labs, it was really supposed to be a lifestyle business and to be able to wear t-shirts, to hang out with your friends, pay yourself, build some cool things. What was the best case scenario that you had in mind when you started the company?
I didn't have a best case scenario. That I wasn't thinking about like what's the upside. I was thinking about um, two specific milestones, which I thought I could hit, but I wasn't totally confident in yet. Um, the first one was I needed to make sure that I could find some people to pay me to do work that I liked, and that I would in fact like the work. I didn't love the consulting environment that I kind of grew up in, with like big consulting, um, but I thought that I could build a model that was actually like really fun, um, and then the second one was that I wanted to make sure that in year one I could pay myself at least $50,000. And, this is 10 years ago, so maybe 9 years ago. So maybe $50,000 was a little bit more then, but still it's like a pretty modest financial goal in year one. That's one of the nice things about living in Philadelphia. And also, I'm very fortunate to be married to a doctor, and so we were not going to go homeless. Um, but yeah, that was like year one goals. And I had honestly no designs on doing anything grander than being able to support myself and doing work that I loved.
Yeah, very cool. I didn't realize your wife was a doctor. My wife is a nurse, and a lot of my family's in medicine, and I'm sure it's a very interesting juxtaposition when you have those family members in medicine, then to compare that to the tech world, it is two very different beasts. So I'm
Mm.
sure you and your wife have interesting conversations about
That's totally
those
true.
topics.
She has, while we've been together, she has had to take some biostats classes that we've geeked out over together. So, there's overlap sometimes.
Now, fast forward to present day, DBT is very successful. You reached 100 million in ARR. You've recently launched DBT Fusion, which we'll get into a little bit later. And you've also started investing in startups
Mm.
as well. I believe I read that you've invested in 50 data related startups since 2021. How's that experience been transitioning from being an operator to an investor and advisor to companies that are trying to achieve some of the things that DBT has done really well?
Yeah, gosh, you opened a lot of doors there. We can start on investing. The I haven't counted in a little while. I think 50 is about right. I believe in the data space. and I do have some things that I in data prefer to versus prefer not to invest in. I prefer to invest more at the infrastructure level as opposed to the application level. Um, uh, but I don't feel like, I don't know. This is part of the like finance undergrad and grad uh, degrees thing. But like I am a at least something of an efficient markets person, and I believe that it is very very challenging to really be smarter than the market. Um, so in general, what I do in my like real investing strategy is like I invest in index funds, and I in my angel investing also try to create a little bit of an index on the data space. I don't I don't try to you know decide that this one's going to be a huge win and this one's going to be a smaller win or whatever. I my check sizes are almost always the same, and it's a thing of like, do I think that you have an interesting idea? Do I believe in you as a founder? And do you have a strong institutional lead? And uh, and in the process, I have watched some companies go under, and I've learned a lot from that. And I've watched some companies grow from uh, nothing at all to having like absolute rocket ship trajectories. And I don't know that I, you know, ahead of time was smart enough to be able to pick between them. Maybe now I'm a little smarter, but it's been nice to just get to watch a lot of these journeys unfold.
Yeah, it takes a lot of samples to understand and build intuition around what works and what doesn't work, and that's an interesting approach to treat it like an index fund. So you're essentially making a bet that you believe the data space is going to grow, the whole pie of the data analytics space is going to grow, and that there are going to be some new entrants that capture some of that pie. And so if you can have a balanced approach to funding those entrants, then there'll be some successes there that outweigh the companies that go under.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I've learned is, if you time travel back to 2021, it seemed like um, the BI space was really ripe for disruption. Uh, it just didn't seem like things were moving super fast there, and uh, there were a bunch of new entrants, and and so it felt to me like there was a lot of opportunity there, and I have invested in a decent handful of you know maybe you want to call it like new wave BI startups, um, and I will say that like there are a couple of them that are doing okay, um, but by and large, the thing that has happened in BI since 2021 is that Microsoft has emerged as a like massive winner, and if you want to bet on Microsoft, you don't do it with angel checks. You do it by the Nasdaq, and so that's something that I think by and large I was wrong about that particular thesis, um, and that's probably just like one of many things that if you look at 2021 versus today, the world looks different. And but it is interesting to see to like be wrong when you have your own personal money at stake. That feels a little different.
Yeah, it does. It certainly helps you pay attention when you're when you have personal funds invested in things, even if it's a small amount. So that makes a lot of sense. Want to switch gears here and get into a little a deep dive on DBT Fusion. So DBT Fusion, for those who don't know, was recently released. It's a full rewrite of DBT Core in Rust, among many other things, which we will get into. And I would love to hear about what you've learned in the past 3 or 4 weeks since DBT Fusion's release, especially coming off of the Snowflakes and Databricks conferences, where
Mm.
I assume you had a lot of conversations with people who have used Fusion, who have played around with it, and have been able to get some feedback.
Traction is strong. We in the past, I think we're recording this right about 3 weeks after the launch. We have the main way that users interface with the DBT Fusion engine is via the VS Code extension that we shipped on the same day, um, and we're at I think 11,000 downloads on that, and so that feels pretty decent. Fusion works great for small projects and for greenfield projects today. And we are racing like hell to get the kind of feature coverage that we need to have it support large and sophisticated projects. Um, the what we actually just got Fusion up and running on our own internal project, which is, as you might expect, we really use a lot of DBT features. Um, and so we've just gotten to a place where the overlap between the features we needed internally and the features that Fusion supports are completely overlapping. But we are in a like heads down race to support things that the things that are top of mind for me right this second that we don't support today that we need to in the near future are things like custom materializations. That's a big one. Gosh, I forget. There's a couple others that kind of keep coming up as at the top of the list, but we're gonna burn through those things it's beta right now, and as we go on the march towards a preview launch, we'll get those things burned down. The thing that is actually not at all surprising to me is that every conversation that we have with users is, yeah, we want this thing. This is like right down the middle of the fairway in terms of the type of innovation that we are looking at DBT Labs to provide. Faster performance, better developer experience, more cost efficient. Like these are the things that users want from us.
And when you say users, are you speaking about the combination of the buyer and the developer?
Yeah, it's a totally fair statement. We are not just a commercial software company. We are an open source community. And so when I say user, what I mean is somebody that writes DBT code, however they do that, whether or not they pay us.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah, it's an interesting facet of developer tools where you have a couple different groups that you service, and the people who buy the tool are not the same people who use the tool in a lot of cases.
Yes, totally fair. And they have the user and the buyer often have different goals. Um, this is we're not the only company to have this type of situation. It is often true for products that IT buys, that the CIO cares about a certain set of things, and it's like deeply problematic for your business if you have a great answer to what the developer needs, but you don't have a good answer to what the CIO needs. And it's also problematic if you have a great answer to what the CIO needs, but you have a bad answer to what the developer needs or the user needs. For this, I would say that the launch of the DBT Fusion engine is, I think, the time that we will see the biggest and best overlap between we have a very clear answer to what users need, faster compile time, far better developer experience, and what the buyer needs, which is things like cross-platform PII, PHI governance, and cost optimization. So like we feel good about like both of those stories at this point.
Yeah, it's really important to have that combination of um, the tool working better for developers as well as being compelling for a CIO from a price perspective. Now, we haven't really talked much yet about how the Fusion engine works
Mm.
at a technical level. Would love to get into some of the internals around why a full rebuild in Rust was necessary and how it can be difficult to maintain an open source tool that where you kind of have to live with all of your past decisions, whether you
Mm.
still like those decisions or not.
Um, yeah. Okay. So if if you want to go real deep here, you should have on uh, Lucas Schulte, who is the co-founder and CEO of the company that we acquired called SDF. Lucas can talk to you all day about the technology behind the SDF product, and which later became integrated into the broader DBT platform and named the Fusion engine. But I will say that uh, the at the outset, Python versus Rust is a fairly straightforward statement. Um, it is uh, Rust is a dramatically more performant uh, language. It is it is built. It is meant to be used in uh, deep infrastructure products with real performance requirements. Very complex software. Like the team at Microsoft that writes Windows is moving Windows code from I can't remember either C or C++ and over into Rust. And Windows is one of the most complex source code in the world. Um, you can't really imagine uh, Windows being written in Python. Like that's just like not a thing. Um, so uh, we we get massive performance benefits from that. Um, the the most important thing that Fusion provides is new capabilities, and the capabilities that it provides are really all rooted in. You can frame it as SQL comprehension, or you could frame it as database emulation. Um, so Fusion is not um, it's not a thin developer tool that allows you to take SQL and add some templating to it and execute it against the database. It is what it is actually doing is it is emulating the target database for you completely, like allowing you to write code that uh, thinks it's running on Databricks or BigQuery or Snowflake, and then allows you to execute that code locally by emulating that engine. And you can imagine why um, a, a piece of nice Python developer tooling doesn't really scale up to a place where it can fully emulate the leading database engines on the market today. And we can talk about a little bit about how it does that, but that is you know you should think of DBT Core historically as really nice developer tooling that thinks a lot about workflow, and the DBT Fusion engine as a piece of hardcore technology that is fundamentally emulating databases on your local machine.
And so when you say it emulates databases, that means that when you write a select statement and the columns don't exist in that table, it's going to be able to understand that that column doesn't exist or that you did an operation that doesn't agree with that particular type.
Correct. So the the SQL that you write in your DBT models, um, on some level, it is just a string, right? It's just like a blob of text, and uh, DBT historically has treated it as just a blob of text, and we are we use something called Jinja, which is a templating engine, and templating engines exist to add dynamic capabilities to big blobs of text. And most of us are, originally aware of templating engines via, the work that we all did in web development in prior decades, and that's an approach that gets you a long way. But if you don't actually understand what's going on in that big blob of text, there's a lot of stuff that you can't do. There's developer experience stuff that you can't do, like catch errors and provide really good error messages, or autocomplete, or all the wonderful developer tooling that you would expect out of a modern language. There's also like really important kind of enterprise stuff that you can't do, like you can't know. It can't know if this email address is still PII when you get later down the graph, because there's been a couple transformations on top of it, but are they privacy preserving transformations, or is it no longer really PII? So all of these are capabilities that actually come out of having deep knowledge of the SQL. And then if you really do deeply understand the SQL and all of the different SQL dialects that users need to write in, you can actually take that SQL and turn it into what's called a logical plan. And the logical plan is something you can actually pass off to an engine, and you then use that engine to execute it. So when I say that Fusion is emulating a database, it really does do every step of the way, from understanding your code all the way down through executing it.
Yeah, very cool. And so that understanding can drive a lot of really interesting developer tooling and cost improvements as well. And we'll get into some of those things. I do want to chat a little bit about the community reaction. I think it's been interesting to observe the excitement as well as some of the concern for DBT core. So I was reading one of your posts that was a response to an article by Pedram Navid that expressed dissatisfaction with DBT's direction back in 2022. And you had stated that a community with such strong behavioral norms towards positivity can, in fact, squash constructive criticism.
Mm-hmm.
And then went on to thank Pedram for
This
his
is great.
criticism, as that
You went deep
drives
here.
progress towards truth. Tried to do my best to do research. It was very easy. Your podcast and blog are very fun to read, so it was not a difficult task, and I learned a lot. But you stated in that article that the criticism helps drive towards deeper truths, and that's a core tenet of DBT Labs. I think there's an interesting parallel at this moment going on, where there's some criticism from the open source community of Fusion in particular around the licensing. So I'm curious what criticism you've been most thankful for, and if there's any specific instances that come to mind.
New information and just change in general takes time to absorb, takes time to get folks comfortable with. And I'm aware of some level of stress in the community around, like, oh, what is this new thing? Do I care about it? What does it mean for the future? All of this kind of stuff. In general, I am not aware of a significant amount of pushback on the fact that Fusion, which when we acquired SDF was fully proprietary. I'm not aware of a lot of folks suggesting that taking a big chunk of this proprietary IP and making it available in an elastic license is not getting a lot of pushback on that, except from a certain set of folks in the community who have very direct commercial interests to want to do things that the Elastic license doesn't allow them to do. So, from my perspective, users are saying, cool, this doesn't impact me at all, after they get through kind of an initial period of like, wait, what's going on here? But there is a little bit of noise from corners of the community who are really profiting on being able to use commercialized technology that we've been maintaining for 9 years.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so, from what you've seen, is people who don't have a vested interest in DBT, in monetizing DBT core, tend to be somewhat unsure of what the license means until you get into the details and are able to explain to their CIO or the buyer at their company that, hey, this is going to be a worthwhile investment. And once the developers know that they're able to get access to all of the cool things in Fusion, that concern or questions kind of disappear.
Yeah, I don't think that the CIO is involved in this at all. Once developers realize they get access to a thing that is exclusively better, and they don't have to get permission from anybody, and they don't have to open up any ports to an external service, and they get real comfortable real quick. So it just requires a learning curve to say, what is the thing? Does this license impact me? Oh, it's better. Oh, I can use it the same way that I've been using it in the past. Cool, let's go.
Gotcha. So it's just more around that it's not as well known of a license.
Maybe it's a little bit less about the license itself. It's more just like I didn't really have to think about the license previously because we all kind of like understood how DBT was licensed and how it was used, and now I actually have to think about it for a second, and then I move through that process where I'm evaluating this, and then I'm fine. Just to make sure that I get it on record, the Elastic license that is what the DBT Fusion engine uses is a source available license. It is very similar to the Apache 2 license that DBT Core uses, but the major difference being that it is not licensed for commercial entities or for anyone to build a managed service around the software and to sell it to customers. So that is the main difference, and our stance there is that Fusion is a piece of industrial grade technology, like hours and hours and hours of some of the most talented software engineers' time in all of the data ecosystem went into building this, and we'll need to continue go into it to maintain it. And so we need to protect our ability to build a business around it.
Yep, and that ultimately allows to maintain and to continue to develop the tool itself. So to summarize that, the ELv2 license, essentially you can use Fusion as an individual without restriction. And it's really just when you start to use Fusion for other companies that there's restrictions.
If you sell it as a managed service to other companies, yes. If you're a consultant and you want to bring DBT into another client, no restrictions whatsoever. That's a super common use case. It's something that folks should do all day, every day. It is literally, do you want to build a product, and do you want to take this technology and make it a centerpiece of that product, and do you want to sell that product to lots of people? That is the only part where you have any limitations.
Gotcha. That's an important distinction. So it is, consultants are allowed to implement Fusion, to create, to to have engagements where they implement DBT Fusion or upgrade
100%.
DBT Core, DBT Cloud to DBT Fusion.
Absolutely.
Cool. Now, on that on that last point, what does the path look like for teams that are currently on DBT Core or DBT Cloud that are looking at the advantages of DBT Fusion, thinking to themselves, I want to leverage some of those things, and um, are thinking about planning a migration? What types of things would you have them consider? I know you mentioned that your team just recently migrated your internal stack, so it's fresh firsthand knowledge for you right now.
Yeah. So um, the if you've been using DBT for a little while, you have almost definitely upgraded DBT versions before, and so the way that I would think about this is not a migration; it's an upgrade. Um, Fusion is version number 2.0.0. And so, in the same way that in prior upgrades, there have been deprecation warnings, and we have, you essentially attempt to run the new version against your project, and you get a bunch of either error messages or deprecation warnings, and you go through and you resolve those. And as you work your way through that list, then you have no list left, and you can just run it. So it is, when I think of migrating, I think of like this big, hairy process where you're going from technology A to technology B, but that's not really what's happening here. This is just a new version of the same thing. There are a few features that I was talking about earlier on. The one that comes up right now the most often is custom materializations. I think that there's some incremental model feature that we don't currently support in Fusion yet. But if you, we have those documented online that you can Google. But if you hit one of those things that we're calling hard blockers, those are going to be resolved by the time we go preview, and so you will be able to. We will make sure to like send updates as we hammer those things out. If you use the VS Code extension, we are working on an upgrade process that kind of walks you through some of these things and makes the process a little faster and smoother. But overall, if you are in a project that all of the features that you need are currently supported, then this should be a process that takes somewhere between 30 seconds and 30 minutes.
Yeah, awesome. That's great. And very interesting to hear that it's um, essentially just another version upgrade of DBT itself. That was something that wasn't super clear to me as I was looking into it. And I think part of that as well is just making the leap of, oh, this is a Python repository, but we have versions of Python before, and now it's Rust.
It was important for us to uh, make the version numbers go the way that they did. Is that DBT has a whole package ecosystem, and all the package ecosystem, all the packages have dependencies on different DBT versions, and so we needed to make sure that we tracked package compatibility with Fusion as well, and so that is why we started on 2.0.0 with Fusion, so that upgrading packages would work just the way that it worked on any prior DBT upgrade. I will say that it would have been real easy to start from Greenfield and just say like, yeah, we're not supporting all that DBT code that have been written before. We're just, we're redefining everything. And from a technical perspective, like that would have made this entire effort just so much easier. But when you have a large user community and we're now at 70,000 teams using DBT actively. When you have a large user community, part of being a good steward of that user community is making sure that the investments that they make in the code that they write are like continue to be forward compatible. It would be hard for me to even hazard a guess as to the number of human hours have been spent today. I would have to imagine that you're talking about over 100 million, if not, a billion total human hours
Yeah.
that have been used. And what like you've got to respect that and the investment that the people have made into their DBT code. And so that's what Fusion does. It says, look, your code is your code, and we are going to maybe ask you to tweak a couple things here and there, but we're going to respect your code base as it is.
Yeah, and that's super important for developer tools is to have that backward compatibility because if you break that, you lose a lot of trust. And I think Python learned that the hard way from 2 to 3, and they really created a lot of frustration that maybe even continues to some extent today in a long tail sense. Now, I know we're coming up on time here. I have one more question around the developer experience that I would love to address, and then a really quick rapid fire segment. So we'll see if we can get both of those in. The interesting, so Fusion unlocks really a lot of benefits with faster parse times, type checking, VS Code extension, a understanding of the SQL that you're writing, and that really delivers a higher quality developer experience. I think it was interesting to compare some of the features of Fusion to your 2016 blog post of building a mature analytics workflow. And in that post, you discussed how version control, CI/CD, documentation, modularity, environments, and unit testing, to paraphrase and combine a few of the items, were really the pillars that software engineering had and analytics was missing. As you look at Fusion rolling out today, some 9 years later, which of those 6 pillars do you think are best addressed, and which do you think are still unsolved?
Okay, that's a really interesting question. I should reread that post from the perspective of everything that I've learned in the past year as I've worked more closely with Lucas and the SDF team. I would say that probably type checking is a thing that needs to be added to that list. I think that also like interactive compilation performance is probably another one. Like that is not only important because like you don't want every time you execute your code to like go make coffee, but it's also important in a world of agentic code authoring tools. Like you just need you need higher performance in a world where agents are going to be writing the code and testing it. I think the most clear one though is I talked about development test prod environments all the way back then, but I didn't talk about just how important it is for your development environment to be local. And that is a thing that still up until today, folks in data don't really have local development environments. They have local development tooling that connects to cloud environments. And for a bunch of reasons, that often is just not as good. It is it's harder to build tooling around. It is harder to create CI/CD workflows around, and honestly, it's more expensive too because rather than using the compute resources that you have right at your disposal, you're accruing credits on whatever service you're running.
Yeah, I love that last point. That's one of the founding pillars of Visivo as well. Is let's bring a local development experience to BI and to the visual, the handoff between the semantic and the visual layer. So that's really interesting to hear. Now, would love to get into a couple rapid fire questions if you've got some time.
Let's do it.
What's your go-to Nas album for deep work? Song is good too.
Illmatic for sure.
One data buzzword that you'd like to see ride off into the sunset.
Oh, I don't know. I don't have any. What is yours?
So for a long time, I was a holdout against AI, just as a term in general. And I've come around to it as it has seemed to progress in its ability to deliver value. But I was first of the opinion that these are just machine learning models that are sending words back to me.
I'm all in on AI. I believe in data mesh. I believe in data contracts. I think that some of these things, we see actually decent usage of our mesh concepts throughout DBT, but it still, honestly, like a lot of organizations haven't done the work required to create the org structures in their data teams to enable them to work in a mesh-like architecture. But it is real, and the companies that do it love it.
Right, Airbnb is a good example of that. What's one role that you had no idea how much you needed until that person onboarded and started impacting your day-to-day?
I think I would have to say CFO. I have a finance background myself, and so I did a pretty decent job of hacking it together for a long time. But then when we have a pretty fantastic finance and accounting team, and their ability to with a very small number of people both operate the business and give me insights that help me make decisions is just awesome.
Yeah, that's cool. All right, last one here. What's the one roadmap item that keeps you up at night?
I don't know if this keeps me up at night, but it's the one that I'm most focused on right now. Because Fusion is so much more intelligent about the code that you're writing than is core, it has the ability to run your code much more efficiently. We have a caching layer that allows you to choose what models to execute and not based on lineage and recency of data, and allows you to do a bunch of other optimizations. But anyway, the way that I measure the efficacy of this is simply run a job in DBT Core and run the same job in Fusion, and how many fewer credits on the underlying service do you consume in Fusion versus Core? And right now, the answer to that is in the low double digits, which is not nothing. I'm proud of that number, but we think that we can get that up to the 30% number. And so, if you imagine just how much of your data cloud spend is driven by DBT, and then you imagine saving 30% on that, that is the number that we are marching towards very aggressively.
Yeah, very cool. And I'm sure there's a lot of benefits as well in terms of faster feedback loops for people when their code executes quicker and they get errors faster too. So,
Totally.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, Tristan. I appreciate you taking the time to go through everything from your background, how you got started, some of the exciting things going on with DBT Fusion, how it understands the SQL that you're writing and uses that to provide a better developer experience, how that's accessible to people who I believe are on Snowflakes and Databricks, right? Those are the two engines it supports right now.
Correct, and I think that by the time this airs, we might also have supported BigQuery. BigQuery's coming very soon.
Yeah, very cool. That should open up things for a lot of teams as well. So we've covered a little bit about how Fusion improves the developer experience. and how the licensing works, as well as figured out finally which Nas album everyone should listen to. So I appreciate you taking the time. It's been really fun chatting with you. For people who want to join the community of DBT and want to learn more about Fusion, where should they go? What types of things should they be looking at?
I would just say hop on to getdbt.com, and you can, if you want to hop in the community, that's awesome. Getdbt.com/community, and if you show up in there, I'm at Tristan, and I love getting messages from new users. So message me anytime.
Awesome. Thank you, Tristan. Really appreciate the time. It was a lot of fun chatting today.
Thanks.